Alan's birthday was one of those days that felt like it was supposed to be simple. A card, a little cake, a little hanging out. Maybe a drive somewhere with the windows down and the music too loud. That was the plan. Then I showed up with a gift that was not exactly parent approved. And the second I walked up to Alan's back door, I got this weird feeling in my stomach. Like the universe had already decided the night was going to go off the rails and I was just the last one to find out. Alan opened the door with that half smile he always had, like he was amused at life even when it was being annoying. "You made it," he said, stepping aside. "Of course I made it," I said, trying to sound casual, like I wasn't holding a paper gift bag that suddenly felt louder than a marching band. Behind him, the house smelled like normal birthday stuff. Dinner, something warm in the oven, a faint waft of buttercream frosting. The lights were on, and everything was clean in that parents are home kind of way, where you can tell someone has been aggressively wiping counters. I walked in and immediately saw him, Alan's dad. He was in the living room, sitting in his chair like he owned the whole zip code. Pipe stand nearby, TV on low. That calm, watchful energy adults have when they're trying to be friendly, but also silently assessing you. And Alan's dad was the type who could be friendly while still making you feel like you should stand up straighter. Back when he was still working, he used to repo cars for a bank, wearing a bulletproof vest that came in handy more than once. He glanced over his glasses and nodded at me. "Hey there." "Hi," I said, and my voice did that thing where it went up a half a step like I was suddenly 12. Alan took the bag from my hand like he was saving me from myself. "We're just going to head to the trailer," he said, already turning. His dad didn't move, didn't blink, just said very calmly, "What's that?" Alan paused mid-step. I paused mid-breath. It was the most normal question in the world, a father seeing a gift bag, asking what it is. A harmless little moment. But I swear, in my head, a robot siren went off. "Danger! Danger! Abort mission! Abort mission!" Alan tried a smile. "It's just a birthday gift." His dad's eyebrows lifted slightly. Not angry, not suspicious, just interested. "Open it," he said. Alan laughed like it was a joke. "Right now?" His dad gestured like it was the most reasonable request anyone had ever made. "Yeah, open it. Let's see what you got." And here's the thing about Alan. He wasn't usually flustered. He was the calm one. The one who could always talk his way out of trouble, smooth things over, act like everything was fine even when it absolutely wasn't. But in that moment, he hesitated. Just long enough for me to feel my soul try to leave my body. Alan looked at me. I looked at Alan. And in that split second, we had an entire conversation without saying a word. Is he serious? He's serious. What do? We are about to die. Alan's dad leaned back in his chair and waited, calm as a man ordering dessert. Alan sighed and pulled the tissue paper apart. The gift itself was wrapped, but not wrapped enough. You know those gifts where you're like, this is fine, no one's going to inspect it, and then suddenly someone decides to inspect it like they're working security in an airport. Alan peeled back the last of the wrapping. And there it was, a shiny, brand new, handmade piece of glass. Not subtle, not discreet. It might as well have come with a neon sign that said, "Teenage bad decision." Alan froze. I froze. The whole room froze. Even the TV seemed to pause out of respect. Alan's dad leaned forward a little, squinting. "What is that?" he asked. And listen, if you've never been asked a question that you absolutely do not want to answer, I can tell you exactly what it feels like. It feels like your brain becomes an empty room with one chair in the middle, and your thoughts are sprinting around the walls screaming. Alan cleared his throat. His dad kept staring at the gift. Not horrified, not angry, just curious. It's glass? He asked, as if we might be trying to fool him into thinking it was a lamp. Then Alan made the worst decision possible. He decided to be honest. It's a bong, he said, like a water pipe. The word landed in the room with a loud, imaginary thud. I waited for the explosion, the yelling, the "not in my house," the dramatic speech about disappointment and consequences. Instead, Alan's dad blinked. Then he looked up at Alan. Then he looked at me. And then he said, with the calmest voice imaginable, "A bong?" "Yes, sir," Alan said, like he was reporting for duty. Alan's dad nodded slowly, like he was filing the information away in a cabinet labeled "Things Teenagers Do." Then he said, "What's it for?" Alan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I could see him trying to figure out which answer would get him in the least trouble. "It's for smoking," Alan said finally. His dad nodded again. "Smoking what?" And I swear the air got thinner. Alan glanced at me again like, "Help." I wanted to turn invisible. I wanted to be an entirely different person. I wanted to get away. Alan, still trying to be respectful, said, "Well, people smoke stuff in it." His dad tilted his head. Stuff. Alan's dad's voice wasn't accusing. It was almost like he was genuinely trying to understand. Like someone had given him a weird kitchen gadget and he was asking how it worked. Alan's dad leaned forward and picked it up carefully, holding it by the base like it was a fragile vase. He turned it in his hands, inspecting it like a man at an antique shop. And then he said something that will live in my memory forever. He looked at Alan and asked, completely seriously, "So, could I smoke my pipe tobacco in this?" There was a beat of silence. A whole beat. Alan's face did something between shock and panic and the beginning of laughter. My brain short-circuited. Because I was prepared for anger. I was prepared for a lecture. I was not prepared for Alan's dad essentially saying, "Interesting device. Could I use it for my hobby?" Alan swallowed. His dad, still holding the thing, said, "Tobacco's tobacco, right?" Alan made a noise that might have been yes and might have been a prayer. And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, Alan's dad started asking questions like he was shopping for a new barbecue grill. "Where do you do," he asked, pointing at different parts of it. "This part holds it? And you put it where?" Alan's ears turned bright red. Mine probably did too. I sat there like a cardboard cutout of myself, nodding along while my spirit levitated above the room. Alan tried to keep it vague. "You just, light it, and it filters." His dad nodded thoughtfully. "Filters? Through the water?" "Yeah," Alan said, his voice cracking. His dad looked impressed. "Well, that's clever." Alan stared at him. "Is it?" Alan's dad shrugged. "It's a little fancy for smoking, but sure. People come up with all kinds of things." Then he turned and looked directly at me. Now, I don't know if you've ever had an adult look at you in a way that makes you feel like you're about to be called into the principal's office, but that's what it felt like. He said, "So you bought him this?" And it wasn't a question. It was a gentle, undeniable fact. I tried to smile. My face did not cooperate. Yeah?" His dad nodded slowly again. And then, with the exact tone of someone asking about the weather, he said, "All right, well, You kids have a good night." Alan and I exchanged glances. "Okay," Alan said. "Thanks, Dad." Then Alan picked up the bag and we headed out the back door. For a split second, I thought we'd gotten away with it. As soon as we got into Alan's trailer, we both just stood there for a second, staring at each other like survivors of a natural disaster. Then Alan whispered, "Did that just happen?" I put a hand over my mouth like it would keep laughter from exploding. "He asked if he could smoke his pipe tobacco in it." Alan's face was still red. "He asked it like he was ordering a sandwich." We both lost it. Not too loud, because the door was open, but that silent, shaking laugh that hurts your ribs and makes your eyes water. Alan collapsed onto his bed. "This is the worst birthday," he said, laughing. "This is the best birthday story," I corrected. He sat up, still laughing. "I can't believe you gave it to me while my dad was home." "I didn't plan for him to do gift inspection," I said, wiping my eyes. "Who makes someone open a present like that?" "My dad," Alan said, like he was talking about a law of nature. "My dad makes you open presents in front of him." I stared at him. "Why didn't you warn me?" He pointed at me. "Why didn't you get me a normal gift like socks?" "I don't know," I said, still giggling. "Because I'm clearly an idiot?" We tried to calm down. We tried to act normal, like we were just a couple hanging out on a birthday night and not two people who had just lived through the most awkward 5 minutes of their lives. But then we heard footsteps. Slow, measured, adult footsteps. Alan's dad appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame like he'd done it 1,000 times. He didn't look angry. He didn't look upset. He looked amused, just slightly. He said, "So?" Alan sat up straighter, so fast he almost snapped in half. "Yes, sir?" His dad nodded at the gift sitting on the table. "You're going to keep that?" Alan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I wanted to slide under the bed and live there forever. Alan's dad held up a hand. "Relax. I'm not blind. I know what you kids do." Alan's eyes got wide. "You do?" His dad snorted softly. "I was young once." Then his dad said, "Just don't be stupid. And don't bring trouble to my house." Alan nodded so hard his neck probably hurt. "Yes, sir." His dad's eyes slid to me again. Not mean, not threatening, just direct. "And you?" he said. I swallowed. "Yes, sir?" He paused for a beat, just long enough to make my heart start sprinting again. Then he said, "Next time, buy him something he can open in front of his mother." And then, hand to God, he walked away. Alan stared after him, stunned. I stared after him, stunned. And the second we heard his footsteps fade, Alan whispered, "He's joking. He just joked." I put both hands over my face. "I'm going to pass out." Alan laughed again, quieter now, half disbelieving. "My dad just asked if he could smoke his pipe tobacco in it. And he said it like he was really considering it," I said, peeking through my fingers. Alan nodded. "Like, that's clever." We both started laughing again, because once the tension broke, it broke completely. The rest of the night was calm, quiet even. We ate cake. He showed me what his parents had given him. We took their dog for a walk. At one point, Tess called and asked what we were doing. Alan looked at me. "Do we tell her?" I said, "Tell her. She'll never forgive us if she misses this story." So Alan told her, and on the other end of the phone, Tess screamed laughter so loud we had to hold the receiver away from our ears. She kept repeating, "Pipe tobacco? Pipe tobacco?" like it was the funniest sentence ever spoken in the English language. And honestly, it might have been. The next day, the story spread the way stories always did. Fast, dramatic, and slightly wrong by the time it got to the third person. By lunchtime, someone was saying Alan's dad had tried to use it himself. By the end of the day, someone else was claiming Alan's dad had taken it away and lectured us for 2 hours. None of that happened. What actually happened was somehow funnier. A grown man looked at a very questionable gift, asked what it was, and then, without missing a beat, wondered if it could be used for pipe tobacco, like it was an ice cream maker. And years later, that's still what I remember most. Not the fear of getting caught, not the embarrassment, not even the heat in my cheeks when he looked straight at me. I remember the moment where the situation could have turned ugly, could have turned scary, could have become a memory we didn't want to touch. And instead, it became one of those stories you tell until you can't breathe from laughing. Because sometimes the worst part of being young isn't the trouble you get into. It's the moment an adult looks at your terrible idea and responds like they've been expecting it all along. And if you're lucky, they do it with just enough humor to let you walk away embarrassed, but still safe, still breathing, still laughing. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll push more stories out to you guys about my life on the road.